What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of DMac Pods. Today's episode's a little different because, number one, I'm a little sick right now. That's probably why I look like crap. But number two, last week I was very busy, and so were the guests I had on or planned to have on, and so we just couldn't make it work last week. But don't worry, we're going to have a little solo episode today. Just because I'm sick, and I also think there's a couple of questions that y'all might want to know about me that might be interesting. A little Q&A about myself. But yeah, so far, that is kind of the plan. And I'm happy for y'all to join me on our third episode. And let's get into it. So why did I start this podcast? And my first answer would be, that's a very good question. I've always liked to talk to people. I've always liked to go in depth. I would say that's probably one of my strengths. And honestly, I don't know why I started it. That's why I say it's a great question. I know I've always wanted to start one. I know I just like talking and conveying and really helping people out through my knowledge. And that's been a big thing so far, and I've really enjoyed it. My goal is also to at least get 21 episodes or more, because if you upload 21 episodes, you are in the top 1% of podcasts in terms of uploads. So it seems like a small milestone, but recording podcasts does take a lot of time. And I don't know, I guess I did it just to prove to myself that I could, and just doing it because I can, I think I do a lot of things just because I can. But we're going to start off with like a little Q&A, but don't worry, I'm going to go into stories and stuff. I've been talking to friends about how I could improve the podcast, and although we're new, that's why it could be a little boring at times, but we're going to try and pick it up, and I have some very awesome guests planned for the next couple weeks. We're going to have 2 to 3 people almost at once on some of the episodes. So it's going to be a fun time. Y'all stay tuned. But anyway, my next question that I kind of asked myself, but I think y'all might be interested, or something y'all would ask, would be, what are my intentions with the podcast? So I guess one of my biggest intentions is just to see how far I can grow it within 21 episodes. I mean, obviously I want to continue it. I'm not going to stop at 21. But my goal is to see, once I become a top 1% podcast, what do the numbers look like? What do the analytics look like? I also want to see how I can develop my, talking and conversational skills in front of a camera, because I'll tell y'all one thing, and my guests can say the same. Talking one-on-one, like without the camera, it goes smooth, interesting, and everything. But with the camera, there's like a small pressure. There's a small tingling. It's like you can't stop and pause for a second on some of the things. And so that's like a real big thing, right? Especially if you're on TV or whatnot. So that's always a great skill to have, right? Even if you don't use it, that is a great skill to have. Another question that y'all probably want to know is, why did I get the nickname DMac? So I actually got DMac back in high school, even though I'm in college now and everyone calls me DMac. DMac was a nickname I got back in high school from my very good friends. My first podcast episode, my guest David Dry, he's a great friend of mine, and so that friend group from high school, a lot of us are actually at A&M now, but I don't know, it kind of originated there. And it really stuck, and so I've been DMac ever since high school, really. I used to get called McCord a lot because that's my last name, and I guess until I was called DMac, people would call me McCord. I don't know if I've ever really been called Daniel, I guess, consistently by people close to me. So it's been interesting, but that's kind of the backstory on how I got DMac. I don't know the specific scenario that happened. I just know someone said it one time, and then it kind of just stuck. All right, so next I'm going to talk about why did I pick comp sci. And if I'm like looking down, it's just because I have like a list of questions to ask myself. But don't worry, this isn't just like an interview. There are some stories I want to talk about, right? Keep y'all engaged and whatnot. Because that's the recommendation I received is add more stories instead of questions. But so I picked comp sci as my major of choice. I don't know. That's a great question once again. I really like coding. I think of it as like Legos. I think of it as art almost. It's like you're painting the code. A lot of people don't see it that way. They just see it as you typing behind a keyboard. But computer science and programming in general, there's no one right way to do it. And I guess that's what really makes me like it is there's so many solutions to a single problem that you could code, right? And the art really comes in not only how you code it, but like the efficiency of your codes. How can you optimize it to the max, right? So like let's say you have a list or something and you want to sort through it. Well, you can compare one by one, or you could do a swap sort, or there's many different sorts, right? You could do a heap sort. Like there's plenty of different ways to go about a problem, but it's I guess picking the right path for that, and solving it like that, and that actually can save you if you have big data sets, hundreds of thousands of seconds. I also think computer science is one of the fields that is very diverse because although it is the topic of computer science, you can work in an industry like fashion, or you could work in an industry like sports, or you can work in an industry like game design. So computer science is applicable to any industry pretty much, right? Because almost everything needs software. So I think it's just one of the most like flexible jobs to have, specifically in like the industry you work in and what kind of product you're working on, right? Because I think it's important to work on something you're passionate about. That's something I tell anyone who ever asks me advice about college or business or jobs or whatever. I just tell them, do what you like, right? Like a lot of the things I do, I can't explain, but I know I like them. And that's enough explanation for me. So do what you like, right? Computer science is something I like. It's not for everyone. A lot of people actually hate computer science, but I would say first thing is do something you like, and second thing would be impact something that you want to impact. And honestly, that's like a recipe for success right there. But yeah, that's kind of why I picked computer science as my major. My next question is, and I don't know who to ask me this, but I would ask myself, but what's my current business? So great question, DMac. My current business, I run a software as a service. It's called Zophis.ai. And right now I'm gonna get a code going for people who listen to the podcast if y'all want to use it. First month free. But basically, it's actually been really interesting. And computer science, here's another reason I picked computer science. Because I can create things that I could use myself, right? And all my projects have been things that I've just wanted to build so I could use. But anyway, getting back to the business, last year I really got interested in TikTok and just wanting to grow an account and seeing how far I could grow it. And so it was an experiment, right? I started the account, and I also started developing an app alongside posting. And so I basically made an app that analyzes like all of your data from TikTok, not only data, but also like the qualitative parts of your videos. So it can analyze your video. It can analyze it before you post. It can analyze it after you post. It'll tell you why the video succeeded or failed, what to do next. It gives you a bunch of ideas on what to post, right? Scripts on daily news, right? So if I wanted to pull it up right now and I wanted to see what's relevant today, right? Because I don't even check the news, but in my app, it will literally tell me for my niche of choice, kind of what are some relevant articles. And I actually got a TikTok account in 2 months. It went from 0 to, I want to say around 6,000 followers, maybe a little under, maybe a little over. I had two videos that blew up. Both got over 4.5 mil. I think one got over 5. Um, both blew up, and all in the span of 2 months. And for the longest time, I was getting like 200 views, 200 views, 200 views. But I just kept doing what the app told me, and it was finding like where exactly to hit the algorithm. Because, the algorithm's not open source, which basically means it's not open to the public. We don't know how the algorithm works on a lot of these apps like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. But we do know that you can kind of hit a sweet spot in order to keep getting some of these viral videos and just keep hitting at that. And so my app, instead of like learning what the math is behind, because no one can learn the math. Only the people who make it know the math, right? Because there's a trillion different equations or algorithms, whatever you want to call them, that they could put out there. But I mean, there's only one that actually does it. But what you can do is predict based off previous videos what to post in the future and if the algorithm likes that, right? And so that's pretty much what my app does. There's a lot of features. I have a YouTube video on it. Actually, the YouTube channel that posts my podcasts, if y'all go look, my first 2 videos are on my app. The first one was like V1. It was pretty basic, but V2 has a lot more features. And if y'all see, I have a whiteboard in the background. That is actually kind of like where I do a lot of my planning and stuff. So y'all could see, if y'all want, y'all could zoom in and take a look. But that's kind of the next steps for the app. Yeah, so that's my current business, Sophist.ai, and I guess that's a little bit of why I picked CompSci. Next, I want to talk about Texas A&M football because I'm a huge fan, and I just want to give a shout out to those guys for pulling out a win. It was a nail biter. I think we only won by 6 against Bowling Green, which is in Ohio, actually. I found out this weekend. But good news is they also played a very tough game against Penn State. So, yeah, I don't know. We pulled it out. It was a nail biter, but it was a fun game. It was a great night game because last year we did not get a lot of those. All of our games were like 11 in the morning or 2 p.m., right after lunch. So, I mean, great game, great attendance and whatnot. It was fun. But yeah, now I'm going to kind of walk through a little business and history, cause I've really been interested in a specific topic, and that's on what it takes to be a great leader. Now as someone who's run multiple businesses, right, this Zophis AI, I'm currently like the only employee working on it. But that's just because I don't need to outsource anything just yet. Maybe sales, because I do not like doing sales and really advertising, but my app helps with advertising, so it's not too bad. But what it takes to be a great leader has been a lot on my mind, not only like this year, but in years past. And I always look to history for this. Sun Tzu, I don't know if y'all have ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu. That is an amazing book, and there's many great quotes in that. I would highly recommend y'all go read it. I read it a lot leading up to my Civ 6 career. For those of you who know what Civ 6 is, it's like a turn-based strategy game. I would play it a lot during the summer, but read a lot of Sun Tzu leading up to that. And one quote I really want to talk about today and kind of go in on that he says is, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death." And this is, if you look at any great leader, this is a trait that all of them possess. Kind of fighting on that front line with their troops. Look at Alexander the Great. I've done a lot of studying on Alexander the Great, but he was known for fighting on the front lines with his soldiers. He never commanded back from the capital, right? he in Macedonia, he always was there at the scene of the battle, and that's what made him so great. He was not only like a very smart strategist, and we'll get to one of his battles here in a second, but not only was he a great strategist, but he was very charismatic, and he was a figure that people look to stand beside, right? His soldiers stood beside him, not in front of him, but beside him. And I think that was one of the biggest traits that made him so great. Another thing was he ended up getting hated towards the end part of his career, and we'll get into that. But I want to start with his luck and timing first. So I know this is kind of a history nerd lesson, but Philip II, his father, was kind of the guy that built up Macedonia. And Macedonia was I want to say a Greek state. They were split up into a bunch of small Greek states like Sparta and Athens and whatnot. And Philip he was like a broke farmer, lived in poverty and everything. And he took Macedonia from this small, broke little city state, kind of turned around the economy, I want to say through farming once again, but he also built their army up very well. And that was through, I forget the name of the weapon, but it's like a super, super long spear. I actually have it pulled up right here. It is, hold on. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. I just want to get the name to y'all, so if y'all want to look it up, y'all can. Yeah, it was I don't know. I might be butchering this. Phalanx. It's Phalanx. But basically, it's like this group of soldiers who have these long spears. And at the time, it was revolutionary. I mean, Philip wasn't really like a big guy on war, but he did want to unite all of the Greek countries. And so, interestingly, he went around and he started conquering some of these Greek countries, but before he could unite all of Greece, he actually ended up dying. I forget if it was from a sickness or something, but he ended up dying, and that's when Alexander the Great took over. And rare moment in history when a son is actually as good as the father was, because usually if there's a great leader, their son is either like a dictator or just a horrible leader or something. It never actually genetically passes down. But this is one of the rarest, I guess, moments that I've seen, at least in history, where it has been passed down, and I guess the successor surpassed like their father, right? And so Alexander, he studied with a famous philosopher. It's kind of been a while since I've revisited his history, but he studied with a famous philosopher. He wasn't really with his father a lot of the time. He was kind of studying, I guess, separately, but he had very great mentors. And so once Alexander the Great finally got into power, he didn't necessarily let it corrupt him, and he continued his father's vision of trying to unite Greece. And so Alexander the Great ends up taking Sparta and Athens, and then he wanted to go for more, right? So that's when he started moving into like Egypt and stuff. And so once he got the Greek Empire, I wouldn't call it empire, but just uniting Greece, he went and turned his sights on the Persian Empire. And at the time, the Persian Empire was like America, right? It was huge. It went from India to Egypt, and the known world at the time, it was pretty much the big thing, right? You didn't really know what was going on in Russia or on the left side of Europe, I'd say, the western side of Europe. Obviously, at this time, the Americas weren't in play, and I mean, there was North Africa, right, Middle East, but nothing beyond there. The Mediterranean Sea was like the Atlantic at the time, right? So the whole known world was actually a very, very small region of what we know today. And after uniting Greece, Alexander wanted to go and get that. I'm sure there's a mix of motivations, right? Some of it's economic, some of it is just doing it to be a great leader or something. Probably go down in the history books, which he did, and in my opinion, probably the greatest leader. I don't know. Genghis Khan puts up a great resume with how he did his strategies. But yeah. So sorry, getting back on track here. Alexander the Great, his first big test against the Persian Empire was this river. I want to say it was called. He crossed a very important river. I want to say it was the Hydaspes River. And it was a river that was pretty much thought of as impossible to cross, right? And the reason for that was it was like swollen from the monsoon that had happened. So it was fast, it was rapid, it was deep, it was dangerous, right? You can't really cross it. And the Persian Empire, they got word that Alexander was coming to fight. So they were on the other side of the riverbank of this long river, and they waited there for Alexander. And what Alexander did was Alexander was very good at being unconventional. That's what made him a great strategist. Was the people that he went up against didn't expect a lot of the things he did, and a lot of the things he did were very risky. And we can talk about the importance of taking risks all day here. But Alexander the Great basically sent out a scout team to try and find upstream a place where they could cross, right? So across the same river, there was another place where they could cross safer, but the other army, the Persian army, was waiting for them there. So they would have been ambushed pretty much, or just they wouldn't have been able to cross that river. And so Alexander asks the team or scout team, find something and report back to me if you do. Scout team found something. They're saying we don't know if we could actually cross this. It's the safer region, but it's still pretty dangerous. And Alexander said it's a lot safer than just going across the safe part of the river and dying because the Persian army's there. So during the night, they ended up moving to this less dangerous part of the river, and they end up crossing it and getting a surprise ambush on the Persian army, and they end up taking them by surprise, quick and fast. That speed is very important. And this could also be applied to business and war strategy and stuff. That's why I think I actually read a lot about good leadership, because a lot of it can be applied to our world today. We still have a lot of warfare. I'm not just talking about warfare, but in terms of just everyday interactions, business and stuff, and all of that can be applied. And I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but we're going to get back to it right now. And so Alexander, he kind of... he crossed the river, got the ambush, and then from there, the momentum was too great. The experience his soldiers had had from not only the wars in Greece started to kind of pour over into their chasing back of the Persian Empire. And so they went through, took Egypt, ended up getting the king, killing them. But there's one more thing I want to talk about Alexander the Great. And I'd highly recommend y'all look this up, but it was someone redid what the Alexander the Great speech would have sounded like. I'm kind of skipping around here, but he was getting mutinied. His soldiers late into the war, he started doing things that probably weren't so great as a leader, and so his soldiers were getting tired of it, and and they were like, okay, we need to overthrow him. We're going to put someone new in power. A bunch of Alexander's generals actually always tried to like take power from him. He ended up finding out and killing them. But one time his entire army almost turned on him. And so Alexander the Great gave this amazing speech. And this was one of the greatest qualities of him as a leader was he never really took any spoils from the war. He actually gave it to his men. And in this speech, he brought it up to his men. He's like, hey, I've been fighting alongside y'all like this entire war. But he's like, I'd like for anyone to point to any of my riches, point to anything that I've taken. And they couldn't because he gave it all to his men. He gave all of the winnings to his men. It didn't matter to him about the gold or the money or the luxuries or the riches. All that mattered to him was the war. And that was perhaps one of the smartest plays he did because it ended up saving his life. He said, point to my riches. They couldn't. And I mean, the speech on YouTube is much better. They have like the whole accent, everything. It's like my favorite speech of all time. It's about 5 minutes. Y'all should go watch it. But ended up squashing the mutiny, then taking care of whoever was in charge of the rebellion. Kept pushing forth all the way to the Indus River. Then I think they started to turn back. There was like uprisings and stuff. He ended up dying, but it was from like a wound and I think of sickness actually. So not by his own men, but one of the greatest reigns of all time, Alexander the Great, and what he brought to the table. And so I guess the lessons that I kind of want to give y'all from Alexander the Great's reigns are, being there for your soldiers. And that was the first quote before I went into the whole history. The first quote from Sun Tzu is, regard your soldiers as your own children, right? So you're not treating, them like they're soldiers. You're treating them like their family, like their friends, right? Think of like your really good friends, your brothers. They would go to war for you, right? If you would do the same for them. And that's what being a great leader is you would do the same for your people and they would do the same for you, right? If they're doing the same for you as you're doing for them, you're on the right track. Another thing I want to dive into for being a great leader, and this is kind of another lesson, is, I don't know, I started thinking about this when I was talking about Alexander the Great, but Napoleon, one of the biggest stories that I remember to this day, I think I've heard it like 5-6 years ago. And this is something that you can use on yourself mentally. I know I use it like a lot. And Napoleon basically was losing a battle, right? His men were outnumbered. It looks like it was done. But then Napoleon sounded the horn of victory. And for those of you who don't know, back in the day, the horn of victory is like the final push, right? And so it's like if the enemy sounds the horn of victory, that's kind of your cue as the losing team to run away. And so I think they were outnumbered by like hundreds of guys, right? So they were like losing bad. And Napoleon, he's on the battlefield. He was also a lot on the battlefield, like on the front lines with his soldiers. And I think that's a lot of these great generals, what they have in common. And he sounds the horn of victory, and his troops get like the second wind, right? The final push. And not only did they start fighting a lot harder, but the enemy, like subconsciously, I mean, they didn't know if they were on the final push, right? But they're like, oh man, we might lose this. And so they, as having a lot more troops, actually ended up dispersing and running because they thought they were losing. And this is something that I guess I apply to myself on a daily. Like if I'm on, the Stairmaster, the Stairmaster's hard, but if I'm on the Stairmaster, right, and there's like 5 minutes to go and I'm like, oh, I think I've done enough. In my head, I sound my own horn of victory, right? It's like 5 more minutes to go. You're almost there. You're about to win, right? I used this actually the other day. So in our basketball arena, there's going to be a boxing match. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but I feel like that's how interesting podcasts might go. But I had a tryout for a boxing match that's going to be in the basketball arena. It can hold up to 13,000 people, so it'd be pretty sick if I made it all the way. And so our first tryout was like a grit test, and we had to do a Murph, and like 40 pull-ups through, like 40% through the pull-up, push-up, and squats. I was dying, but in my head I was like, you're almost there, keep going, like 1 rep at a time, like you're about to win. So I guess that's like another example of just sounding that inner horn of victory and just persevering. It's very important to persevere and sound that horn of victory. But I don't know, I just thought of that during the Alexander the Great conversation and how Napoleon did that and ended up winning that battle. I think a lot of what great leaders did, not only for their troops but themselves, is tricking yourself, right? Because a lot of the time when you think you're tired, you actually have a lot of gas left in the tank. And so it's better to trick yourself into giving that final push rather than, I guess, rolling over and just giving up, right? And so if you can find ways to trick your mind, trick your body into thinking that it's almost done, right? You'll put in more effort. I promise you that. Like I said, a lot of this stuff and strategies in war can be applied to real life. Another cool, I just keep thinking of these stories that I've heard. Another great one I want to talk about is Sun Tzu. This is actually, I want to say, I don't know if this was one of his stories, but I believe it's in The Art of War, unless I read it in another book. But Sun Tzu, he basically, so I think he was defending a fort or something, and he had 100 troops to defend it. And they got word that 2,000 troops were pulling up to take the fort, right? And what Sun Tzu did, this might be like the biggest bluff and gamble in history. If it is true, I'm like 90% sure it's true though. But basically, he opened up the front gates to the fort, and he sat on top of the gate by himself. So think of like a traditional castle, right? You have the gate, and then you have kind of that ledge, that wall ledge. And so Sun Tzu, he opened up the gates, right? Made everyone go into like a lockdown drill almost. So there's like no noise in the town, right? You can't see a single person walking beyond the gates. And there he sat. I think he was playing like the flute or something crazy like that. Gates open. I think it was like a foggy morning too. So that really helped. He kind of lucked out there, but sat on the gates playing a flute, and this 2,000 army pulls up, and there's like 100 guys, right? The numbers might be off, but just know it's a lot too little. And the other commander was like psyched out by Sun Tzu. He's like, okay, this definitely has to be a trap, because there's like, they didn't know how many people were defending this fort, but the fact that there was no like movement, no noise, and it was just the opposing general sitting on top of the gate was enough to make them turn around and say, yeah, we're outmanned, we're out prepared, we're going into a trap. When in reality, they could have went into that fort and easily taken it. So a lot of it is psychological, right? Tricking yourself, tricking the opponent. I guess being a trickster is a very good thing to do. But yeah, I guess that's kind of like some of the stories in history that I've liked. I don't know where I was kind of going with this episode. Like I said, I'm a little sick, but I did want to get an episode out for y'all. And then I'm probably gonna wrap this up by talking a little about like my experience at A&M. But first, I want to talk about my app, and I have an ad written up, so y'all listen. And I'm 100% behind this app, so if y'all have any complaints, y'all can always come to me, and I'm here to talk to y'all. But yeah. So, are you a business owner or an influencer struggling to keep up with the fast-paced world of social media? Let me introduce you to Zophis AI, the ultimate SaaS platform designed to streamline and supercharge your social media marketing strategy. With Zophis AI, you can plan, schedule, and manage all of your content across multiple platforms with ease. Whether you're a brand trying to engage your audience or an influencer looking to grow your following, Zophis AI gives you the tools you need to accelerate your growth. From analytics and insights to smart automation, it helps you stay ahead of the curve without the hassle. Stop spending hours managing posts and struggling to keep your accounts in sync. Let Zophis AI handle the heavy lifting while you focus on creating content that truly connects. Visit Zophis.ai today and take your social media game to the next level. The website URL is zophous.ai. And once again, zophous.ai. Yeah, so now I'm actually going to wrap up with a little bit about academics here at Texas A&M and I guess kind of my experience so far. So a little background, if y'all have listened to my previous episodes, and one of them, growing up, I always thought I was going to go to U of H. I guess it just kind of made sense because I was close to Houston and ended up not going to U of H. I've already told the story on, I think, my first episode, but my stepmom's side of the family, all of them are Aggies. Like my grandpa, he was an Aggie professor. And one Christmas, I just got all Aggie gear and decided to come here, and it has been one of the greatest decisions of my life. Not only have I learned a lot academically and have been able to connect with professors, surprisingly, because of how many students are here, but I've also been able to make a lot of great connections, not only in like my field of computer science, but also like social ones, right? And so I've made like a lot of business friends, a lot of friends that I would have a beer with, just a whole range of it. And it's been a great time. It's been very manageable. I think being a college town helps, and I might be repeating stuff I've already said, but I truly think being in a college town really helps when you're trying to get the feel of college. Because I have friends who go to UT Austin and U of H, and one of their biggest complaints is they're like, a lot of the times when we go out or something, like there's a lot of adults. It's not like just student oriented. And one charm about College Station is a lot of the people you're going to see like at HEB or, just going out to the mall or eating some food. A lot of them are going to be college students. And a lot of these are actually like great places to like, I mean, I wouldn't say HEB is a great place to meet friends or something, but like, you could strike up a conversation very easily, right? And it's with someone your age, right? So there's like the opportunity of building those connections in places that you would never expect, right? Another good thing about being like a student college town is a lot of the things around here are built for students. Like a lot of the entertainment, a lot of the like extracurriculars, not only on campus but off campus, are really targeted towards like the age range of 18 to 24, and that's been like a really big part, especially in just getting out and doing something, right? Like I do kickboxing in the mornings. I haven't gone recently because I've been sick, but when I'm not sick, I go 6 in the morning, and I've met a lot of friends there. People I would have never met in any of my classes or extracurriculars. So it's just like things like that I think really make A&M stand out. Also, it's a cult. I know people hear this a lot. It's a cult. It's a great cult. I'd highly recommend that y'all join the cult if y'all have not yet. If you're at a different school, come join the cult. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my take on the social life and academics. I've kind of already spoken on it. Yeah, for computer science, I can't speak on behalf of other majors, but for computer science, you can structure your schedules very in like a very manageable way. Just because of like how the classes are stacked, you'll have like every semester you might have like 1 to 2 hard ones and then 1 to 2 easy comp sci classes, and so it all balances. Another recommendation I would give would be if you're planning on doing any engineering major, join honors. Not even for doing the requirements of honors, because I mean you don't technically. I mean you'll get kicked out if you don't, but if you can join honors because you get early registration, and I'll say about 60% of your college GPA is dependent on the professor, not the course. And I could go all day on how much your professor matters. But kind of to wrap up, this is, I guess, the first episode of DMac Thoughts. I kind of did this on the fly, because honestly I wasn't really planning on releasing this week, but I want to stay consistent. I think building that momentum is key. I had no idea where I was going with this episode. But I do know, I'm interested in history, and then also just wanted to answer some questions people might have had about the podcast and about who I am as a person. Next time I do this, I probably should look up more at the camera. I feel like I've been looking down, and part of that's because I have like questions lined up here, but part of that is because I don't know, it feels weird to stare like straight into the eye of a camera. I know I probably should more, especially going forward. You got to build experience when doing this, and I guess I don't know. I'm pretty inexperienced in the podcast world. Still getting better. I've had friends tell me good things, friends tell me bad things, friends tell me where I could improve. But I think all of that will come with experience. So if this was a rough watch, I apologize, but thank y'all for sticking through the end. And I will see y'all on the next episode of DMac Pods. I really need to get an intro and an outro, but it is what it is. All right.